Do you know when we're on now?
Do
you know when we're on now? It's 14?
Yeah, because 13 was 13 Assassins. Yeah. It should be. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to episode 14 of Dudes Watch a Movie podcast. This week, we are continuing our Japanuary month, and we are watching one of my favorite movies of all time, so much so that I have a metal poster of it on my wall that I will now show you folks, linked in right here, and that is Shaolin Soccer. I am your host, the notorious G-I-N-G, and with me, as always, is...
the reliable co-host, Ted Sprocket.
Yeah. So, Japan.
Yeah.
Number one.
Japan, the movies that we're supposed to be watching.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Japan.
Themed.
Ichiban.
Japanese movies that we're supposed to be watching.
Hi.
Soccer.
You want to go ahead and hit them fine folks out there with a plot synopsis?
So for those who have not been graced with the movie that is Shaolin Soccer, allow me to enlighten you. Because enlightenment is... Anyway, IMDb reads the plot summary as, a young Shaolin follower reunites with his discouraged brothers to form a soccer team using their martial arts skills to their advantage. And that's it.
Yeah, you really don't need a whole lot of plot to it.
It's true, we really don't.
It's a very simple story. It's just
outlandish.
Yeah.
But simple.
Very, very simple. Not so much with the characters, though.
No.
A lot of strange stuff goes on in this movie. Did you notice anything about the intro when they're showing the production companies and all that jazz?
The animations?
Well, that too, but the names of the studios that brought this movie to life.
Not really, no.
So the first one that it says is Miramax, which is one of the greatest and worst studios of all time. Fantastic studio, but it had a monster for a founder.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah. So before they ran Weinstein Company, they started Miramax, and that's what all the Kevin Smith movies and Quentin Tarantino movies, a whole bunch of really good movies came out of there, but also apparently a bunch of really shitty things.
What a shame.
Yeah, I'll never not think of that when I see either of those names now, which is really fucked up. Also, didn't know if you I guess you can't catch because you hadn't seen the movie before, but the intro credits, they have all the characters that they draw. Each single one of them is represented in the intro. They have an illustration of them doing their pose that they do at the end in the game, like standing on his head. They have one doing the leg way up.
That makes sense. That's why it seemed familiar after. I was like, oh.
I never noticed it until this time. I was like, How
many times have you seen it since then?
Since we just saw it?
Mm-hmm.
None?
No, I mean, how many times have you seen the movie?
Oh, tons.
Oh, okay.
Like double digits.
That favorite, huh?
Oh yeah, me and Travis used to love that movie. Also, just soccer.
Yeah. There's not very many movies out there not very many good films that are about soccer that I can think of off the top of my head.
Say what's I never saw it, but it's one that everyone always talks about, being Green Street Hooligans.
Wasn't that?
It's not so much about the soccer, but it's about the hooligans that like the soccer.
Yeah, it's like the soccer's the subtext, and most of it's based around the fighting.
Anyways, right out the gate, what were you thinking?
I didn't know what to expect. I don't know if you remember me consistently drilling about questions about how this film was supposed to be. I was like, is it supposed to be towards serious? I've seen little tidbits of Kung Fu Hustle, and I expected maybe it to be like that. I wasn't let down, to put it at least. I wasn't anticipating how, I don't want to say satirical, but maybe that's the word. how over the top it was with everything that it kind of did.
Really just strange.
Yeah, they tried to keep it grounded in a sense, but at the same time, not.
There's I have a note here that it seems like a live action anime in terms of its sense of humor and some of the stuff that happens, like his continuing like daydream moments and some of the faces they pull. Might just be Asian humor in general. I mean, I don't know. I'm gonna say 90% of 50% of what I know about Japanese culture comes from anime. The other 50% comes from wrestling. So not a good basis to try and understand another
Purely
another people's
entertainment,
culture.
not a lot of culture.
Pretty much. And speaking of Kung Fu Hustle, it is by the same people that made that movie, starring the same character. So I was wondering throughout it if you would kind of get the same feel, because where I feel Shaolin Soccer is definitely more comedic. It's got some of that same flavor to it, where you can. It's like if you watch Hot Fuzz, Shaun of the Dead, you can, other than obviously knowing the same main characters, you can tell it's the same sense of humor and stuff going on.
Makes sense. The only scene that I remember vaguely still, because like I said, I didn't see it thoroughly, it was just glimpses, with some lady with a cigarette.
Oh, the old lady?
Yeah.
Beats everyone up?
Yep. That's the only thing I remember.
I used to have a real problem, and to a degree I still do a little bit, where I get the two movies, certain scenes confused. So there's a part in Kung Fu Hustle where he's fighting someone whose fighting style is based off of a frog, so he gets down on all fours and he like launches himself at people. And I kept thinking for some reason that was one of his brothers in this movie. And I, for the longest time, thought the I forget what they call it, the Palm of God or something like that, was one of their moves, but it's definitely not. It's in Kung Fu Hustle, and it's like the ultimate be-all, end-all move that no one's supposed to know. Kinda. But we start out, and he's. They keep referring to him as he looks like a janitor, which I guess I didn't know janitors had a go-to look about him. He looks like kind of like a bum.
Yeah.
He's got holes in his shoes, wearing ratty clothing. Got great hair though.
I thought he was a bum, because I mean, it looked like he was collecting cans.
Yeah, and he was, but it was as part of his. I think he was taking them to the dump as part of the job.
Oh yeah, because he didn't get paid enough for the cans that were worth.
Which I thought was insane. 20 cents for 4 full giant bags of cans.
Yeah.
That's 4 cans here.
He got ripped.
Yeah, I would have thrown a bit of a fit.
I will admit one of the more favorite parts at the beginning of that film had to be when, as he was walking away, it pans down to all the shoes of the people that were walking, and you could tell that there was the high society because they were all really nice, fancy shoes. And then it cuts away to a bunch of dirty, like, ratty shoes, and people who are wearing them misused, and then it takes you to where he's at now. So it's like giving a location using shoes.
Yeah,
Like,
which is not.
You're in the wealthy and now you're in the slums, just by with what people are wearing on their feet.
It's a very creative transition too, and there is a lot of kind of slick stuff in there. Like I like the transition that they did at the very very beginning, where they have the stuff that was going down back when Golden Leg was actually a player, and then Hung talks him into throwing the game, and he gets his leg broken, and then you see Hung walking by in profile, and then it fades into him now, so you immediately know what that guy did to the other guy, how they stand in relation to each other, without really having to have a scene later where he's like, well, you screwed me back then, and all this jazz. I thought that was really nice.
Makes sense. I thought it was kind of weird though that he agreed to follow him or like help him out for all these years just so that he could coach the team.
Yeah. He was told that he'd be able to coach his own team. He would.
Figured
I think he would finance
less
it.
than that many years, he would have figured it out.
Yeah. Well, he's
Very bright.
Yeah. He's kind of I would assume that his world was kind of destroyed once they broke his leg, so he just did whatever he had to, and it seems like Hung is really good at kind of being a manipulator. So he probably just kept saying, oh yeah, it's coming, yeah. And then eventually he's just like, dude, fuck, I'm not doing this.
No more.
Now clean my shoes. Another thing that really kind of took me back, which I didn't remember, and I should have, now that you mentioned Kung Fu Hustle and that old lady, is there's so much smoking in this movie. Just tons and tons and tons. I was kind of surprised there wasn't a scene where just like a kid walked by with a cigarette hanging out. The drummer was smoking. Everybody.
Lots. Tobacco usage is huge. I believe, from what I've heard and seen over in the Eastern cultures, that cigarette smoking is kind of like bigger than it is
Still
here.
a thing.
Yeah.
It kind of paints it out to be a seedier country. Like they do show you a lot of kind of the lower side of living over there. They all live in like shanty towns, and a lot of his brothers don't have jobs. But then they'll also show the higher society, like you're talking about, and they'll show like Hung hanging out the golf course, looking.
I feel like they
real Donald
depicted
Trumpy.
the higher society as more of a, I don't say evil, but like everybody in the slums, there was always some sort of carefreeness about them. Which, I mean, there might be a message there that makes sense, but like it portrayed them as being the always almighty, all good, just because they're pure and they come from the slums area.
Going up against Team Evil.
Yeah. I wonder if they were good or not.
I really like the idea that there'd be a sports team that just decides to call himself Team Bad Guy. You know.
So does that mean they have to lose in the last one?
Oh yeah, they would. They almost manifested
Setting
their own
yourself
destiny.
up for failure.
Yeah. There is, speaking of that, going back to that cartoony feel, some of that also comes down to the use of CGI in this movie, which I very much appreciate. It's super blatantly CGI, and I like that the film itself, I don't know if it was just due to the time or if it was a purposeful act, but it's really grainy and not super high quality. So when you mesh that with CGI, it looks even more out of place.
It's clean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I love it so much. It gives it like a weird character, sort of.
I have a thing that said the effects in this film just make me cringe.
I give them kudos for doing what they could, because I did look into the budget, and I always had the feeling that like they had money, obviously, but not a shit ton of money. And I wonder how much of that went to that CGI, because there are other scenes where you can tell they were doing whatever they could to save themselves some money. When he sends all those bamboo sticks flying at the person, it looks like they just have people off camera going throwing them at him.
I will admit, I like the wind scene when they get on top of the building and you can clearly see the strings
Those
pulling
strings.
their clothes.
And I want to say, I hope they did it on purpose. It was so good. This movie, the whole thing just oozes of character to me. It's not like any other movie, minus Kung Fu Hustle, that I can say I've ever seen in terms of the look of it, the comedy of it. It's all unique.
Yeah, I agree. It has its own, I don't say own genre, but in itself, it's its own film. There's not a lot that are like it. I mean, other than the Kung Fu House, but isn't that made by the
Same people, yeah. So
that makes sense.
There's something about
Mary?
Oh. There's something about like the awkwardness of it too. Like you were talking about seeing the strings there, and then there's some other scenes where every movie they do ADR and they go back and they add in Foley and sound effects and things like that. And there are certain scenes where they just didn't really do that. So in their very first game, where they're playing against that other team, the other team that it looks like a straight up like science nerd. Oh, and then the wrench falls out of his trunks because it says he's I need that.
Mechanic.
I'm a mechanic, and then the hammer falls out.
I'm a mechanic. I got to carry my tools.
So they're in that game, and then the other team doesn't even go for the ball. They immediately start pulling out weapons and fighting them, and they rally, and they have their moment where they're coming back. No, scratch that. It's before this, where they're doing the fake out moves, and he's trying to like go dribble past them, but he just
keeps doing it. He keeps doing it. Keeps doing it. The guy's just standing there watching him,
and then they give it to Lightfoot or whatever, the fat guy. They give it to the fat brother. And he's like doing his jukes, but there's no voice audio. So it just looks really awkward. Then they attack him, and then they finally use that to reawaken the Shaolin spirit in them.
Which, to me, it just seemed like it was just a pleasant timing that happened, because like they're all getting beat up, and then he looks up at the sky and goes, "Oh, it's here now."
He sensed it.
It's just like,
Yeah, it took them all getting pushed to that brink, and then he was like, oh, they're back. And then he cut back, and they're standing on their head, holding himself up by just one hand on the goalpost, and a bunch of weird shit like that. It was, I don't know, the whole movie's just funny. Like, there's either purposeful humor, and then there's accidental humor, and then there's like a mixture of both sometimes, I think. And nothing doesn't land, I don't think.
I think it really clicked for me what kind of humor this film was going to be when that lady slipped on the banana peel. That one moment of she falling for more than what seemed like 5 different scenes until she hit the ground.
And why did she fall?
Because she didn't know.
She didn't know how to be a Shaolin monk. She didn't practice Shaolin or Kung Fu.
I want to admit, though, I don't understand what he was trying to get at when he was trying to do singing with Shaolin, like fighting. He didn't do any of that stuff. He just sang was all. Like, I was anticipating
when they're in the bar
doing
scene?
Something. Yes,
Yeah.
Wearing that terrible cap thing.
I think the idea was that they were gonna sing about how awesome Shaolin is and how awesome Kung Fu is, but then they didn't do it. They seemed like they were drunk because they were like laughing and making jokes to themselves, and then they kept getting wrong which one was Ironhead because they kept smashing on him and kicking his leg.
The other dude.
He's stone leg.
I feel like this film could have broke the fourth wall and it would still be funny because it seemed like there should have been moments where they would have, but
and it wouldn't have seemed
over the top. Yeah.
Wouldn't seem out of place at all. And then you've got his love interest who works at that like street bakery,
Steam buns or whatever.
Yeah, steamy buns. She's got shit all over her face. Like, I don't know if they were boils or scabs or I'm not sure what the fuck it was, but it clears up by the end.
Still on her forehead, just not the rest of her face.
Yeah, she got that bald cap.
But then
on.
when that comes, and then when she puts that on, right?
She for a brief moment, I was like, man, this movie's really ahead of its time. It had a female who saved the day, but then I remembered that they also tried to do the makeover thing. Like, you'll succeed once you're pretty. Right. I was like, whoa, they were kind of there.
They tried.
Weinstein does it again.
There was an attempt.
Yeah. The other big thing that really kind of came across to me on this viewing, whereas being more analytical with it, is they clearly love movies. They did so many things to convey a certain feeling, especially when it comes to the soundtrack, to what kind of scene they were doing. So they had like a brief horror like scene where he was coming in to see Ironhead after they had that bar brawl, and the camera was coming in and it's playing that like ominous music, and he was getting scared and backing up.
Oh, right, because he's running away and he's throwing stuff out.
Yep. So you think someone's coming to kill him or something, but it's just
his brother.
It's his brother, yeah. And then they've got the war scene during the first game.
God, I lost on that one.
They've got so
Too
many
over the top.
So many different. I don't know if I would call them genre clues that they do in there. That's done so well that you can clearly tell that they've studied movies. They know what's going on and they know how to implement it. And I think that's a part of a reason that I didn't know previously that really makes me appreciate the movie, but I can see it now.
Yeah.
Is there really anything, questions you have, or anything that just really caught you off guard other than the entire movie?
The really hardcore lack of cards in this game, like yellow cards, and red cards, and just the rules. The ref just does it. The ref is about the equivalent of a wrestling ref. He can say all he wants, but no one's gonna listen to him. He's just gonna do it.
He was paid off. He was.
I guess that's true. Towards the end, he said that
talks about it.
Hung bought everybody and tried to get him to win nothing more.
Although, honestly, if he'd bought him off, I think they would just be constantly calling it on the other team.
Mm-hmm.
Did they? I forget did they have a name?
I don't think
It
so.
might have just been like Team Shaolin or something like that. I don't remember.
I did like their robes. The combination of like an actual soccer outfit with ropes, though. The robes top.
Yeah.
It wasn't a full robe guard. It was just kind of the top and then some, I guess, shorts. But
And then you've got the goalie who is Bruce Lee.
very, very much clearly Bruce Lee.
It's also strange that the they're playing in this tournament, which would I don't think ever exist in real life. You know what I'm saying? Like that many people gathering around something that's not like FIFA or anything like that, and they're putting a couple, what was it, like $1 million or 1,000,000 yen maybe on the line for the winner. And it was just anyone can sign up. It's whatever.
Like an amateur soccer game. But the women players, that was kind of hilarious. That took me by surprise.
With the mustaches.
Clearly wearing mustaches. That was funny. Yeah, I don't have a whole lot written. Like I said, I was kind of anticipating you carrying on this one because I was saying engulfed in it, but the fact of having still, like we said with the last one, reading subtitles and paying attention to what's going on is kind of what I wanted to do more of. I was gonna kind of complain about the underwater workout that they were doing, which seemed a little pointless because I mean they didn't really expand upon it other than the big giant explosion of his foot kicking under the water, but I don't think that was ever.
Yeah, that's kind of seems disjointed because then at the end they talk about just giving them steroids or the American drugs. So you think
American drugs are great?
It would have been more effective if they did the American drugs scene first and then showed them kicking underwater because that would have made more sense. I think that's what's supposed to be happening.
The fact that the scientists and the researchers were also underwater,
and they're
watching them,
and still in the jackets and everything. I can see, like, I don't have a whole lot of notes either. It's just a really, like, it kind of sucks you in at times. There were moments where I had to be like, oh, right, I have to write some notes down or else I won't have anything to really call back to, but it's just too entertaining to kind of look away from for too long.
Because you'll miss something.
Yeah, it's all happening super fast.
Like in the first time we were start watching it before we went back to it, I completely missed the fact that he got his ass beat when he threw the game, that everybody was charging him. And I was just like, oh, okay. But the other scene that I felt lasted a little too long, also that didn't get enough, I don't want to say screen time, but when the girl was making the buns and she catches the pan and then she's like doing all the things with the coins and all that junk, I felt it lasted a bit too much, but they put so much effort on showing that, and then throughout the film it wasn't brought about to the very last moment, and it was such a short little bit.
Like when they come back to her making the buns again, when she's crying, or when she shows up in the game?
No, like the first time when he first meets her, and then the kid throws her that.
Yeah, but you're talking about when they came back to it.
Yeah, when they came back to it, like her at the game. Yeah, because they don't ever show any more bits of her actually doing it. So I feel like the time spent trying to show that just was kind of to a little bit in there.
Well, I would think that it was, the idea was that it shows you that she does know some kung fu, but they don't want it to seem like she knows a whole bunch or she's really powerful at it, because then you can kind of see the ending coming, where she's going to be the one that steps in, which again I think is very against the rules. I don't think you can just add a roster member halfway through a game.
Well, they were shorter players, so and it's not a real game.
That's true. That's true. It's just. It's one of those things you just kind of have to watch. Yeah, for sure. I don't know if I could ever properly describe it to somebody and do it justice to the point where I just never try. I'm just like, yeah, it's a really good movie.
Because there's really nothing to compare it to unless you've seen Kung Fu Hustle. Like, if you've seen the two movies made by the people, then there's like you could try and say it's a parody. Like, I can't think of anything off the top of my head, but there's just nothing that's like it. So I guess I'll say it's unique.
Yeah, 100%. Should we get to the most controversial part of the movie?
Yeah, sure.
So my very, very, very first note is, and this was before I ever even hit play, this is not a Japanese movie, will Tom notice. And there are very few hints throughout the movie. Mainly being they talk about Kung Fu a lot, which is a Japanese, or not a Japanese art style, it's Chinese. I think they mentioned yen at some point, which that I don't know for sure. The big giveaway obviously is at the very end, and it shows it a couple times where you caught it, where the scoreboard says China Super Cup.
It just clicked with me the whole film. I was like, something's off about this. I've watched enough anime and watched enough of these Japanese movies to know what Japanese sounds like, and to know that it has a certain dialect, a certain gruff to it, that this just wasn't hitting. And I was like, is this, won't say Indonesian, but like this is just something that's just it doesn't feel right.
There's certain sounds that are present in Chinese that's not in Japanese dialect.
Yeah, that wasn't as aggressive, I feel like, because there's a lot of Japanese language that's a little bit more aggressive. They had a lot of more like rolls, I feel like, with how they were saying their words. And then not only that, but it's just the whole film, like I said, it just kind of felt off. And then I was thinking monks. I don't know of any Japanese monks because technically, like the Tibetan monks, like moved in. They did go into Japan, but they were still just Chinese folk who went to Japan and just passed it on there. So it's just like something's off. Like I don't want to assume. And then I was just at that end there. I was son of a bitch. I'm disappointed in myself. Thanks.
I was really happy. I had fabricated an entire month dedicated just to showing you this movie. That's not even Japanese, but the pun game was too strong for Japanuary.
For 2 movies a month, it's a waste, my friend.
Nah, because it was a good movie, and now you know it exists.
Movie. We should have saved it for a different one, like a sports month or something. March Madness. What goes on in March? Lots of sports. Mostly just basketball.
Yeah, but then I would lose my opportunity to make you watch a movie that's actually about sports.
Space Jam? Maybe?
Not now, but maybe. Space January next year. I told you about this. We'll watch Space Jam 2 times.
Damn it.
I've got nothing else I can say about this movie.
Oh, me neither.
So we might as well ramp it up. What's your what the fuck moment?
The entire movie. Because the whole movie, all I caught myself thinking was just what the fuck's going on? What's happening? Why? Like, I want to say it started mostly when the dude got smashed over the head with a glass repeatedly.
The Iron Head?
Yeah, Iron Head. And then just after that, everything else was just, like, okay, so kicking the can in the wall, all right, whatever. Kicking a soccer ball really hard, okay, you know, I get it. But as soon as it starts getting into the overly ridiculousness stuff, it's just,
I was in the same boat where, even though I've seen this movie a million times, there's so many just random strange things that happen that you can't remember them all. My initial front runner was when he first sees her and she's making her rolls while doing her kung fu, and then it cuts to him and he just goes, ah, and you don't know that he's about to start singing, so it looks like he's just screaming. But then something happens that might be the most what the fuck moment I've ever seen in any of our movies. Although I can't remember any of my other ones, so I might have to backtrack that at some point. But as of right now, it's the most what the fuck moment ever. And it's when they're training, and he's teaching him control with the eggs. And he puts it in his brother's mouth, and the fat one who cannot control himself from eating runs over, tackles him, and begins eating the egg out of his brother's mouth. And then he does it again.
But his hands go
Pinning
flat
him down.
and then his like toes go pointed. Like, is he enjoying it? Is this supposed to be a moment of enjoyment?
But he just, and then he does it again, and it uses the same cut, same thing.
He pulled a Tommy Wiseau.
So good. Oh man, what was your favorite scene?
Favorite scene, the initial shots of how things could have been had this lady learned the Shaolin martial art, the girl that fell and slipped on a banana peel.
Oh,
that was one of my favorites.
The first daydream?
Yeah, it just kind of, it really starts engaging you with what this film is going to be about. And I think when I say my second place for that one was just like them finding out each individual's I'll say superpower, but like the one guy has the stomach thing where he can stop the thing, and
what would you call that? It's their
it's like their montage.
Fuck. There's like their style.
Yeah. Yep.
My favorite scene is hands down the war hallucination. Because they start it so subtly. I was like, I feel like I'm hearing war sounds. And he starts crawling, and they go to a camera angle. I'm like, I'm getting a real like Saving Private Ryan vibe. And the smoke kind of starts coming in, and I hear a chopper. And I was like, oh shit, they're doing it. I forgot all about this scene. He's crawling through, and he gets the gun eventually. He's like,
throw him a helmet or something, or he gets a radio, a walkie-talkie, and a gun.
It's like, we need help. They're killing us. And then they cut back and he's just laying there with a stick. Oh man, it's so good. And then finally, the MVP.
Honestly, I didn't really write one down, but if I have to go with one, it's the fatter dude, Lightfoot.
Yeah, whatever his name was.
Yeah, I really enjoyed his character just because he was a little bit more bubbly about the whole situation. I was anticipating something happening throughout the film where he was gonna suddenly do his kung fu stuff and then be skinny again. But I like that he stuck with his weight and whatnot.
And that's another area of the movie that they're harkening back to. What we're talking about their ability to take from other films and make you feel a certain way. They do a really good job of making you feel bad for the majority of the brothers. One guy's losing his hair and has a shitty job, but especially Lightfoot, which I wish we knew his actual name, and I'm just going to keep calling him that. He shows up the picture. I used to be skinny. But they just do a really good job of making you feel bad for him with the music in the background, him telling his story, and it looks like he's going to reclaim himself, and he just takes out that entire stack of toilet paper.
Over the entire thing. Lightweight is his name.
Lightweight, thank you.
Not Lightfoot. Small brother.
Yep. He's he was minus the main character, probably my favorite brother. My MVP was either the writer or whoever did the score, because I think those two were perfectly meshed together. I don't know why I just made them butt heads. Let's do that. Perfectly meshed. There you go. Yeah, synergy. There's only so much that you can leave up to chance when it comes to these kind of movies with the amount of jokes they were doing per second. Someone had to have written all that. It kind of had that same feeling of The Office to me in a weird way, where it seems really natural, but and almost like they would just improv it. But at the same time, it was like too tight not to be. Like there's nothing that seemed out of place or nothing that didn't have the continuity.
Very fine-tuned.
Yeah. So it seemed really natural and just insanely funny.
I agree.
Yeah. Whew. That's it.
Yeah.
Do we have official word on what February is yet?
No, this vote is still up. If you are watching this, you should vote. If you have not, I want to say last I checked there was 5 votes.
Fuck yeah.
2 movies. 2 movie themes, excuse me. And the themes are, if you have not seen this, Oscar movies and February. Any movie involving booze, I'm assuming that's what we're going for.
Yeah, I was going to say not necessarily have to be 100% about the booze, like Beer Fest, but anything where there's an important presence of alcohol. So it could be like James Bond always talking about martinis, or The Big Lebowski and his White Russians. Anything where there's a big
White Russian.
Anything where there's a big presence of it. When does that end?
I have it ending on the 25th,
okay.
So at least we have at least a good solid week before we shoot the next film. So, well, less than a week.
There you
obviously.
go. There you go.
5 days, 5-6 days.
Anyways, we will see you again February 1st with whatever movie genre, type, theme is chosen. I may or may not break the rules again. I don't know. I like being the villain. Anyways, till next time. Oh, even better. Dig it. A Macho Man shirt on. Till next time. Thank you for watching. I have been the notorious J&G.
Dead Sprocket.
Thanks.